Being well aware of the potential hidden within her, Ghislaine declared that he would make her capable of wielding magic, an offer to help her achieve her potential. Vanessa had originally resisted the idea of leaving the tower, remaining within its walls, even if it meant enduring the degrading treatment of a servant, would have allowed her to continue her magical studies. Following Perdium's young lord meant severing that connection. Yet, circumstances had left her no choice. Forced to accompany Ghislaine, she had accepted his offer to assist with her magic, though her thoughts remained clouded by doubt. Curiosity stirred within her. Could a swordsman like him truly understand anything about the magic? Ghislaine's sudden call pulled her from her musings. She responded without delay. He inquired, probing gently, about the extent of her magical education. With quiet hesitation, she confessed that she had reached the 5th circle, though her understanding remained limited to theoretical formulas. A kind smile crossed Ghislaine's face as he silently formed his plan, which is to teach her the proper method of mana cultivation and oversee her progress personally. He commended her accomplishment, acknowledging that reaching the 5th circle was no trivial matter. Having spent her life as a mage constantly belittled and dismissed, Vanessa accepted the compliment half-heartedly, unable to read the young master's true intent. She lowered her gaze and admitted that, despite all her efforts, she still could not perform magic, rendering her studies seemingly meaningless. Although Ghislaine already understood the cause of her inability, he asked anyway if there was a reason she couldn't use magic. Vanessa's reply came softly, her voice fraught with uncertainty. She revealed that she had never once sensed mana since childhood. Despite this, she had clung to hope, working relentlessly in pursuit of magic. But with each step forward in knowledge, her faith in her potential diminished. Her teacher, Leonardo, who had once guided her, had since passed on. She wondered aloud if that was the reason she had ultimately been cast aside. Certain of her hidden potential, Ghislaine resolved to begin by teaching her mana cultivation. If she could learn to apply what she already knew, her power could rival even the elders of the tower. In this state, with her knowledge of 5th circle magic intact, proper cultivation would elevate her to that level. She was exactly as he remembered from his past life, a brilliant mage, just as he had anticipated. In this era, memorization alone could not lead to mastery. The art of magic required comprehension of activation principles and a deep enough insight to shape spells through will and personal interpretation. Vanessa possessed the intellectual foundation, but her physical aptitude had yet to align. True control demanded enduring hardship, trial, and persistent experimentation. Ghislaine believed her efforts had not been in vain. She had simply traveled a different, longer road. The voice of Claude echoed in memory, referencing a powerful mage from his former life, the woman who had raised northern Lithuania. She had reached the 7th circle, but her instability stemmed from blending magic and cultivation without proper technique. Despite her brilliance, her recklessness had made her infamous. That mistake, Ghislaine intended to avoid. With full conviction, Ghislaine announced that he would now teach Vanessa mana cultivation. Tension immediately overtook her. The idea of a mage learning such a technique made her uneasy. Her former master had introduced her to it once, but the attempt had failed. Her doubts surfaced immediately as she questioned why a mage should pursue such a path. Ghislaine clarified that both magic circles and cultivation were grounded in the same force, which is mana. He then asked if she had ever practiced it properly. Her expression shifted to one of disbelief. Though she had studied the technique before, it had been under rigid instruction. The thought of being taught by a nobleman with no formal magical title seemed ludicrous. She shook her head firmly, rejecting the notion outright. To her, it was madness. Using mana cultivation to access magic seemed far too risky. The consequences of failure, internal damage, or permanent disability were too severe to ignore. In that moment, Ghislaine offered a reassuring smile. Extending his hand to her, he called her name and invited her to begin. Ghislaine understood that the madness in Vanessa's past life had likely been the result of flawed technique colliding with long-standing resentment. He had seen similar signs before. Even knights occasionally succumbed to inner demons during intense training. But in this life, he believed things would unfold differently. Vanessa observed the sincerity in Gislin's expression, silently beckoning her toward a path where she might finally become a true mage. She could not fully comprehend what he was offering. In a magic tower, she had been dismissed as a failure and a burden. Her gaze fell to the ground, attempting to mask the tremble in her eyes. She weighed the decision. Refusal might not even be an option. Gislin could easily compel her, for what lay ahead otherwise was a descent into madness and eventual death. In the end, she gathered her courage and resolved to accept, if only for a chance to wield magic like a real mage. Anxious and uncertain, she positioned herself in front of Gislin, seated with her back to him. With no hesitation, she loosened her collar and revealed her back, allowing him to begin the mana transfer. In his previous life, Gislin had seen that same expression in her eyes, an endless hunger for magic mixed with regret, rage, and despair. She had sought power in desperation, turned to an unknown mana cultivation technique, and ultimately became a creature of destruction, ruled by instinct and pain. But now he stood before her in a different lifetime, meeting her before that spiral could begin. He made a silent vow to reach out before she fell into the abyss again. With that, he summoned his mana and placed a steady hand against her back. The process would be agonizing for her. If miscalculated, it could result in death. Nonetheless, he proceeded without hesitation. Mana surged from his hand and into her body, accompanied by a low hum. As the energy coursed through her, pain ripped through her nerves. A moan escaped her lips as the searing heat traveled through her mana pathways, eventually gathering just below her navel where Gislin was guiding it. He sharply instructed her to remain silent, warning that the pathways were becoming tangled. He explained that the mana within her now belonged to him. She was told to focus on that foreign presence and not to lose track of it. She needed to feel it and follow its flow as best she could. Understanding the gravity of this moment, Vanessa closed her eyes and gave herself over to concentration. Every ounce of her attention was funneled into aligning herself with the mana inside her. Traditionally, she would be guided through the sensation first and only later create a mana core of her own. But that route carried no guarantee of success. Gislin chose instead to prioritize sensation, helping her feel the full extent of mana flowing through her being. Her task now was to circulate the mana through her body's internal channels and condense it into a mana core. As Gislin initiated the formation of a small, temporary core within her, Vanessa's eyes brightened. For the first time in her life, she truly felt mana, an experience she had once thought forever beyond her reach. Now, whether she could continue cultivation would depend entirely on her. The core, formed from Gislin's mana, would eventually dissolve unless she built her own. Enraptured by the sensation, her mind drifted into the past. She remembered her origins as an orphan. Lonato, drawn by her intellect, had taken her in and lobbied for her future. Lonato had appealed to Hubert, claiming Vanessa's understanding of theory could uncover the fundamental regularity of mana particles and convert that knowledge into true spellcraft. Unconvinced, Hubert responded with a scoff. In his eyes, no amount of intelligence mattered if she could not cast even the simplest spell. He posed the question coldly. If a child could not use magic, could she be called a mage? From behind a cracked door, the young Vanessa had listened in silence as her teacher pleaded on her behalf. Hubert had delivered his verdict with finality. No matter how many resources were poured into her, he declared, nothing worthwhile would ever come out. Vanessa saw her younger self, struggling beneath a kind teacher's care, still unable to feel mana or form even a single magic circle. There had been a time when Vanessa wept openly, offering apologies to her master. Tears streamed down her face as she blamed herself, believing that if only she had possessed more talent, her master would never have been forced to leave the magic tower. Yet Lonato had left, driven by a single purpose, to search for a method that would allow Vanessa to wield magic. Before the departure, Leonardo left her with parting words, urging her to lift her head and look toward the sky. Leonardo spoke of a world where darkness did not last forever and promised that one day, even she would witness the arrival of light. And now, that light had come in the form of Ghislain, who extended his hand to her so she could finally glimpse the mana and magic she had long yearned for since first setting foot in a magic tower. Within her inner world, Vanessa realized that her master's words had been true. Even someone like her was not beyond the reach of light. Elsewhere, a warrior clashed with a group of soldiers. Chaos erupted as one of the soldiers cried out in alarm, exclaiming that the man had already taken down 4 of them and questioning what kind of monster he could possibly be. With taunting bravado, the wild warrior challenged them, daring the rest to come forward. He scoffed at their swords, mocking them as mere metal toys. Provoked, one of the soldiers lunged, blade poised for a precise thrust. The warrior dodged easily with a sidestep and seized the attacker in a firm grip. Using his full strength and the momentum of his body, he slammed the soldier hard onto the floor. Another assailant rushed in from behind, attempting to attack while the warrior was preoccupied. But the warrior noticed in time and, without missing a beat, swung the first soldier like a rag doll, striking the newcomer with brutal efficiency. Both were hurled through the wall of their barracks with a crash. The warrior stood over them, unbothered, and remarked that he had not even begun to warm up. Inside the barack, Victor drank alone in silence, untouched by the uproar. One observing soldier murmured in awe, declaring the man is the greatest warriors of the era. With his meal finished, Victor set down his cup. Seeking quiet in the restless life of a night, he stretched out beside a riverbank, a fishing rod planted lazily nearby. Another man approached and asked if his training had gone well. Victor, unmoved, simply asked what news he brought. The man reported a dispatch order from Count Desmond. Victor rested in silence for a moment. As the Count soared, refusal was never an option. For the sake of honor, he retrieved his helmet and donned it once more. Returning to the barracks, he found his men bloodied from the brawl, but spared them no attention. Boredom had long eaten away at him. Now, at last, there was a mission. He intended to raise the target Count Desmond had set before him.